First off, let me say this was completely unplanned. I was just browsing Facebook Marketplace and well, here we are.
Then again, isn't that how all good project stories start?
Now there are a ton of red flags with this thing. It hasn't moved in 3 years. The paint's trashed. There's a bit of body damage. Supposedly the transmission's garbage. Clearly I have a type and it's red Mopars with those exact issues. Which is apparently common knowledge at this point because when I messaged the seller about this truck, he responded, and I quote, "Yes, I was hoping you guys would contact me." Clearly the jig's up. He knew I was buying it. It was listed for $17,900. We ended up making a deal for $12,500, sight unseen. Which means yes, we already own it and we haven't even heard it run, much less drive. And I know that might sound dumb, and it probably is. But I'm not sweating it. I have some wild plans for this truck, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. I think we should probably see what we just spent 12 grand on first. I mean, the interior, I would say it's kind of nice, but it's a mid-2000s Dodge. You can't possibly make these nice. It's plastic, it's kind of junk. The seats are worn out, but it is an SRT10, so it does have some cool features. By cool features, I just mean it has SRT logos everywhere, on the gauge cluster, on that gauge, on the dashboard, and on the seat. That is quite literally it. But we didn't buy it for a nice interior. We bought it because it's one of the coolest trucks ever made. And though it's been in this driveway for 3 years, he kept it on a battery tender and it's supposed to start.
It starts!
That doesn't sound good. We had very different reactions there.
I mean, it starts!
I'm concerned with the noise coming from the engine bay.
I don't care.
I mean, I think it's just a belt. It wouldn't feel right if there wasn't any smoke. Right? Right. I'm gonna go ahead and close this just so we don't have to listen to that anymore. There is one other thing that the previous owner did that's actually really cool. It's got exhaust cutouts. I might not do it to my own car, but it's gonna be fun to make some V10 noises. Okay, so it is an engine start switch. Not an engine off switch. So it does run, which is generally a big plus when you're buying a new project. In this case, it's not gonna matter so much, but I suppose it is gonna help us get it onto the trailer without a winch, so there's that. The paint though, that's another story. That is absolutely shot. For as bad as the paint on the hood is, the roof is 10 times worse.
As for the tires, these are somehow in worse shape than the paint.
It might sound like I'm picking the truck apart just a little bit, but truthfully, I'm really not concerned about the paint. What I'm more focused on is how absolutely absurd these trucks look. This gaudy front bumper, which looks like it came from AutoZone in 1995, but somehow it's cool because it came straight from Dodge. Same deal with the hood scoop, and of course, no getup like this is complete without a spoiler. A little bit odd on a truck, but I dig it. It clearly also had some exhaust work done, but we'll see a little bit more of that once we get it back to the shop on the lift. The bed, hopefully there's not a big rust hole under here. Looks good to me. I do have to say, now that I'm looking at it, the functionality of this bed with the spoiler across the top of it, that's not ideal.
I don't think that works at all.
Truthfully, the only way I could see this working is if we got a bigger spoiler. Now on the body damage front, this thing is 10-fold better than what we normally buy. This is pretty much it. There's dents, there's dings, but I mean, it doesn't look like... Now I know what you guys are thinking. It runs, it's not totaled. In fact, it's clean title. What are we doing here, right? Just this one time. Instead of doing the typical rebuild, I decided to start from a clean slate, do more of a wild build. But at this present moment, I'm more worried about it just making it on the trailer. Also, it has no gas. No gas. Death. I drive this thing home.
I don't know, man. This thing is huge.
Pretty sure this trailer's not at all supposed to be hauling something like this. I mean, it's hanging off that side. But hey, I don't think she's going anywhere, and as long as we make it back to the shop, I have a little bit of a test planned. It doesn't feel like it runs really well, but it's the first time this has been driven in 3 years.
Okay.
You know, I think you should get out for safety.
Okay. Just in case.
Just in case. It works. It definitely works. For reference, the previous owner said he took it up the street, got on it, and it just revved to the moon. It was like the clutch was slipping. He assured me that the transmission was bad. I'm gonna believe him. Okay. It just didn't feel really bad right there. It felt pretty f***ing awesome. I'm by no means a truck guy, so to have such an iconic truck that I've kind of always wanted but never had the opportunity to own be my first project, I couldn't be more excited. So excited, in fact, that we're probably gonna rip out the drivetrain and stick a Demon engine inside of it, among a few other things. Yes, the loose wires hanging under the truck, always encouraging. This is definitely the tallest thing that's ever been on the lift. I think if we really tried hard enough, we could probably smash the top of the cab into the lift. We're gonna try not to do that though.
I got some
that's a leaf
questions.
spring, that's fine.
Are you sure about that?
Fine. All right, let's see what we're working with. You pulling out dirt or rust?
It's actually spiders.
Spiders.
Yeah.
All right. The spare tire. I think this might be the rustiest thing in the entire car. It's kind of just swinging around too. Not too worried about that. That's getting ripped out. I have other plans for this area. Other than Corvettes, I'm completely unfamiliar with leaf spring suspension. I think these are some aftermarket like helper springs on top of the OEM ones. They are really rusty though. I think we can save those. The exhaust. Finally get a look at this, Jim. I mean, it's V-banded cutouts. They actually look kind of nice. It's a shame we're not going to be able to use them. The exhaust hanger rusted through completely. I imagine this is shaking around a good bit. But look, at the end of the day, none of this stuff matters. All we're worried about is the frame, which I have to say looks pretty good, especially for a nearly 20-year-old truck in this part of the country. Sure, there's some surface rust on the brackets where the leaf springs mount, but moving up towards the front, there's no holes, there's no major rust. The floors look good, even on the rocker panels. All the way to the back, there's not any damage, not any rust holes, nothing. Even the trans brace, the subframes, they're all in nice shape. Yeah, she is leaking a little bit, but hey, that's probably why the subframes are in nice shape. It's been getting coated with oil. All right.
That's not a little bit.
Look, sure she's a little wet, but at the end of the day, none of this matters because we're not using any of this drivetrain. And sure, Viper engines are cool and all, but
number one, they sound like UPS trucks. It does nothing for me. Number two, the name Demon Truck. I mean,
What about number 3?
that's all I got. I think those are good enough reasons. As the name Demon Truck would suggest, we're going to subtract 2 cylinders, add 1 blower, and build the world's first Dodge Demon powered truck. Now, in theory, it should be a pretty easy swap. The V8's significantly shorter lengthwise than the 10-cylinder. It is a bit taller due to the Supercharger, but there's such an insane amount of space under the hood, I can't really imagine that that's going to be a problem. So like I said, in theory, not too bad. Practically though, we have issues. Wiring, ECU, transmission or transmissino, engine mounting, cooling, headers, exhaust, intake, drive shaft, fuel, shifter, oil pan question mark. And that's the list before you even touch the truck. Surely it's gonna get a little bit longer. This really couldn't have worked out any better. This is easily the sickest transmission I've ever built, but the goals I have for this truck are lofty, so I think it's going to be worth the expense.
Goals?
There are goals. Tow the Demon to the track. Easy enough. Do a burnout while towing the Demon to the track. Shouldn't really be a problem. Do a burnout while towing the Demon to the track while Demon's doing a burnout on the trailer. We'll figure it out. Make a quarter-mile pass. No problem. Easy. Make a quarter-mile pass faster than a stock Demon. Big problem. taking a 5,600-pound truck and making it faster than one of the most legendary production drag cars of all time. Like I said, lofty goals. With our fancy new transmission, though, we're at least pointed in the right direction. The stock Demon Trans is an 8-speed automatic that I chose not to use for obvious reasons. And that's why we built ourselves a 4L80. It has half the gears, but should hold twice the power. Now, the 4L80 is originally a Chevy transmission, meaning it won't bolt to the Dodge engine. But we swapped the Chevy case for an aftermarket retransmission case designed to do exactly that. As for what's going on inside of it, 501 Performance got us set up right. It has every aftermarket part possible to make sure it's going to handle all the abuse we're going to throw at it. Of course, every bit of this is SFI certified, the bell housing, the trans case, even the flex plate, which means it's going to be just a little harder to go all Demon Trans on us. Now, as for the engine, it's bone stock. It's going to make Demon power, but it's going to weigh like 1,000 pounds more. So at some point, we are going to have to put more power to the car, but we'll worry about that once we get it in the truck, running, driving, and all the kinks worked out. For once in my life, I'm just glad to have an engine and a trans ready to go at the beginning of a project.
Which means we can get right after it, at least after I gave you guys the cheat code on how to sell your car.
How'd it go the last time you tried to sell your car privately? If it was anything like mine, you probably got lowballed, ghosted, and maybe the best offer you got was the PlayStation 2 and $600. Last month, I introduced you guys to Private Auto, and I couldn't be more excited to have them back as the sponsor of today's video. Private Auto is the marketplace where you can safely and securely sell your car, well, privately. They have a ton of great benefits when it comes to listing your car, but where they really shine is the transaction. They walk you through each step of the process. Step 1 is confirming the details of the deal and adding any additional services like car shipping or insurance. Step number 2, signing the e-bill of sale and uploading the title. Easy enough. Step 3 is the payment, where the buyer can transfer money instantly, just like Venmo, with Private Auto Pay. It is truly a one-stop shop to buy or sell your next car. There's a ton of places to list your car for sale, but there's only one place to do the deal, and that's Private Auto. Use my code Lee and list your car for free so you can close the deal on Private Auto when you sell your car. And who knows, maybe if it's junky enough, I'll even buy it. I gotta admit, the further I get into the truck, the more impressed I am. I, like I'm sure a lot of people did, thought that this was just a regular 1500 that they threw some fancy bumpers on, stuck a big engine in, called it an SRT10 and sent it down the road. But parts like the front bumper, it has this lower diffuser attached to it that's mounted really, really solidly. It's something I would expect to see on, say, a Porsche 911 GT3, a 2005 Dodge truck, not so much. Alrighty. This is how you know you bought a real piece of junk. This has definitely saw some mileage. Now we just need to find evidence of mice, a big rust hole that we didn't see previously, and we'll really have that project car trifecta. Did you see how big this is?
Oh,
Okay. Never in my life.
I thought it was into here.
Yeah, I did too. Well, wait, there's more. Look at this! We can admire how big this thing is all day, but there is a bit of a problem here. It's certainly going to be big enough to cool the Demon engine. If it can cool a V10, I'm sure it can cool a V8, but this fan, it's a hydraulic fan. We're going to have to ditch the hydraulic fan and try to find an electric fan set up for it, but as for the rest of the coolers, it looks like we're going to be able to use a lot more of the stock stuff than I originally anticipated. They really overbuilt the cooling system on this truck, but I guess that's what you can do when you have all this space. This engine comes to here. We're going to take it back probably another at least 3 inches. That'll leave us a lot of room in the front, maybe for some additional twin turbos down the road. If you thought the radiator was impressive, this shaft, next level. Supposedly there's 2 different ways to pull this engine. One, you can take the cab off, or you can try to do what we're doing now and yank the motor out of the top. I am starting to kind of think that we have all these oil leaks to thank for this thing coming apart so easy. I thought we're working on an old truck. This is going to be real man's work. You know, breaking bolts, chewing rust. Nope, everything's came apart really easy. Suspiciously easy. Man, almost like it was designed to go that way. The corner of the block sits on this little bit of frame. That means we can let this whole assembly rest, drop it down, hit the motor mounts, and theoretically rip it out with no problem. Well, we just pulled what I think was the last motor mount bolt out, and the engine didn't move a centimeter. Bet we can make it move though. Oh yeah, there we go. So we got to get that oil pan to clear, and then we're pretty much home free. Oh, okay, not bad. Hold. After all the bragging about the room in this engine bay, this was not the easiest engine to get out, but it's out now. It's never going back in, so I guess it's not really our problem. But seeing this thing on a pallet, it is massive. The engine alone, 34, and the trans, 38. That's about lined up. Total length on the trans, 32 and a half. As for the Demon engine, oh my God, 30 inches at best. Now, when we go to drop this thing in, I'm sure there's gonna be some things we have to modify, we have to play with, just because it's a different engine, even given the smaller dimensions. But one thing I know for a fact we have to change, the oil pan. The Viper engine uses a really deep rear sump pan, and the Demon engine uses a front sump pan. It's not at all gonna be compatible. In fact, if we went to stick it in as it sits, it would probably bash off the sway bar, the steering rack, and the subframe. It also happens that this is gonna be our first chance to look inside this motor, which I'm quite excited to do. Unless it's full of metal, in which case I will no longer be excited.
Wait, do you saw that? Ik ben in Mexico.
Viva la demonio, baby. I mean, it's dark, but it's clean. I don't see metal flakes. This is a win. I am indeed still excited. It has been a minute since I pulled one of these things apart. I forgot how weird of a design this is. The baffle's built into the gasket. Seems very wasteful, if you ask me. You can't really ask for much more as far as how this looks on the inside. It doesn't look new, but no metal, no obvious damage. I'll take it. For now, we're not going to address any of the insides until we confirm this pan's going to work. I do have pretty high hopes that this is going to work. It would be really nice if we can just have an off-the-shelf option like this as opposed to having to make one. Now, while I am optimistic that the oil pan's going to work, one thing I'm pretty positive we're not going to be able to use are these factory headers. If I had to guess, just looking at how this engine sits, I think this is going to smash into the steering column. As for engine mounting, which is probably the trickiest part of this entire swap, it's somewhat of a mix between off-the-shelf and custom. These guys are 3rd gen Hemi specific swap brackets that are made to go into some old truck, and while this lower portion's certainly not going to work for the truck we're putting it into, this base plate, the bushing assembly, it's going to give us a really nice base to fabricate from. And by us, of course, I mean Josh from JCH Wellfab, fabrication extraordinaire. If I made the mounts for this thing, it'd be sitting 10 degrees crooked. Now, before he can work his magic, we got to get the trans bolted up and try to jam this whole assembly into the engine bay. Oh, yeah. Just like the oil pan, we're sticking this on with nothing inside of it. No torque converter, no flex plate. Once it's all sat in place and we know this trans is going to work, then we'll take it out and redress it.
All right.
My God, look at that. Absolutely unreal. All this space gain just from subtracting 2 cylinders. When I originally drew this project up in my head, it didn't seem like we were going to gain that much space, but here we are, and I'm certainly happy to have it. As for what we're gonna do with all that extra real estate, I don't know. We'll figure it out once we get it in. And one other thing we have to figure out is what do we do with this V10? 8.3 liters, 500 horsepower. You could pretty much just fix the oil leaks on this and drop it into something. My original plan was to sell this bad boy and recoup some of the money that we've already put into this project. But what funds that?
How far away from the windshield?
You got like a foot. Now stop. Come down. Believe it or not, even with all this room, this was not the easiest engine to get in here. We had to muscle it around a little bit. The valve cover was hitting the brake booster, the supercharger was hitting the cow, but we managed to get it done without breaking anything, so there's that. The couple issues that we do have, this is our oil filler neck. That's where the oil filler neck's supposed to go. Clearly it's not gonna fit anymore. So we're either gonna have to relocate it to there, or we may be able to flip-flop the valve covers and put that one on this side, and then we should be good to go. Other than that, the only real pressing issue is the driver's side header. It's gonna be really tight. We have the steering shaft disconnected at the moment, but the second we hook that back up, it's gonna go from there down to there, and it leaves us like that much room for headers. We're gonna be able to keep AC. It's not gonna interfere with our power steering lines. The supercharger clears. The alternator's gonna fit with no problem. The starter, though it might be a little hard to see, fits absolutely perfectly. And then there's the mounting. I did say we were gonna have to do away with the bottom part of the motor mount setup. It turns out we didn't. He was able to modify it just a little bit. We're gonna weld it right to the frame. So it turns out the mounts that were designed for some older truck ended up working pretty much perfectly on this as well. One thing we did have to do to open up some clearance is hack the original motor mount tabs off the frame. These were big, dumb, and in the way. With the way these new ones are set up, we're gonna have plenty of room to run our headers, at least on the passenger side. Now, of course, it's really easy for me to say this all worked out really well. Everything went super smooth. That's because I'm not the one doing it. Welcome back.
Look like a rat. It was really simple, honestly. Just get the post mounts made. They're gonna get welded in a second. Then I'll be able to get it on the lift, get up under it, and get the trans mount made, which is very simple.
You heard him. You can actually believe him. It was a really simple job. Never in my life did I think I'd be working on a truck with this much room. Look at this. We won't have to struggle to get this transmission out. Wow. There's like 6 inches plus of access to everything. The closest point on the engine was that rear water manifold that hangs off the back of the supercharger to the firewall. These motor mounts fresh out of the box worked perfectly. I did not think it was gonna happen that way. How much do you have to modify them? I don't know, like a ½ inch?
Yeah, just minor tweaking and just weld them straight to the subframe. They worked out good.
Unreal. And if you thought that worked out easy, if you thought that was too slick, check this out. Josh, as usual, you absolutely crushed it. You made it almost look too easy.
Until we get to that driver's side header.
Yeah, that's gonna be a challenge, but hey, I have faith. I've built quite a few swap cars over the years, and to install a brand new engine and trans into an unknown of a chassis like this and have our fitment issues be limited to oil fill tube and header design, I'll take that 10 times out of 10. It's not really a secret that us car guys have ideas sometimes that, how do I say this? Don't really work out for the best. Financial ruin, sometimes the stuff's simply impossible, but in this case, this is one dumb idea that worked out flawlessly, and I am fucking pumped about it. If you can't tell, I am beyond excited to start wrenching on this thing and figuring out all the different systems we have to account for. To me, especially when you're building something essentially from scratch like this, it's far and away my favorite part of the build just because of all the creativity that goes into it. Designing everything exactly how you want and building something awesome like this, you just can't beat it. I can't wait to share all the cool stuff I have planned for this build with all of you. I think it's going to be a truly special build, completely different from anything I've done before. And with that, I'll see you guys back here very shortly to get back to wrenching. I have some wild plans for this car. We'll talk about that. It's not a car. That's gonna be a hard habit to break. I don't think I regret owning this. This is easily the sickest transmission I've ever bought. It's ready to go at the beginning of a project, which means we can get